Hi folks, I'm Roger Proudfoot. I'm the Estuaries and Coasts Manager at the Environment Agency. A slight change to the programme, as sadly Joe Bays and stand-in Mike Nelson both unwell. But fear not, as I'm responsible for overseeing the work that we're going to be talking about today as part of the DEFRA Marine Natural Capital Ecosystem Assessment Programme. For those of you who attended virtually during COVID, cast your minds back to talks from Patrick Myers from the Scheldt in 2021 and Rich Batiuk from Chesapeake Bay, who both, in my mind, planted the seeds of Source to Sea, which is what I'm going to talk a little bit more about. We've been reimagining how we can go about enhancing our estuarine and coastal environment using Source to Sea thinking, and we want to share with you some of our development work and what we are doing in Essex to test how we are applying that thinking and a natural capital approach with the aim of influencing the management of what we know is a critical environment at the land-sea interface, where more than a third of the UK population live and work. I want to say at the outset that we're pathfinding here. One size doesn't always fit all, and we should pick and mix from the approaches being showcased in this session and be others cheerleaders to amplify our messages and impact. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we can develop a more powerful and cohesive approach in the same way that Patrick and Rich planted their wisdom with us a few years ago. We hope to do the same. Before I introduce some of the details of the work, I'm going to start by explaining why, as marine scientists, we need to be thinking and ideally working from source to sea. So it seems obvious, but our water environment is a single system. Catchments, rivers, lakes, groundwaters, estuaries and seas, they're all interconnected. We know that. We probably learnt that as infants. But it means that the pressures in one part of that system can impact other parts. For example, excess nutrients or sediments entering the water system from farmland higher up in the catchment might be hindering seagrass restoration efforts in coastal waters. Yet, despite this connectivity, freshwater and saltwater are often managed in silos, and different priorities are often handled in isolation. I think that a lot of us here would admit that we tend to focus on problems and solutions in the sea, and perhaps don't spend as much time as we should looking upstream for answers. Equally, our terrestrial counterparts focus on land and fresh water and don't spend enough time looking downstream. This disconnect can make it harder to address the full scope of issues we face and really limits collaborative opportunities for funding or whole system management. To help us better address these issues, we need a more holistic approach. It's our contention that when we combine source-to-sea system thinking with a natural capital approach, such a framework can support understanding of how the local environment, pressures, and interventions interact and affect services and benefits. But importantly, can be a powerful way to use local knowledge, improve understanding of a place, and increase buy-in with a shared vision. There will inevitably be information deficits from the outset, but these can be filled by working together. Also, Source to Sea and a natural capital approach fit really well with existing six-step environmental planning and delivery frameworks like river basin management or marine plans, meaning we're able to integrate more easily with existing approaches, projects and priorities. Here's an example of one of our priority habitats, salt marsh, set out in terms of a natural capital approach. If we can describe, compare, and combine ecosystem service and benefit indicators and metrics in this way for the whole catchment to coast system for our key habitats, it will enable interoperability of evidence bases, tools, assessments, and reporting, which is absolutely critical to understanding land-sea interactions. Using the language of flows, services, and benefits, it can empower stakeholders to understand the state of their local environments and identify and choose enhancement opportunities that are meaningful to them. So not in milligrams per litre, but in terms of swimming, fishing, tourism, economy, and nature. If we get it right, it can show the trade-offs in services and benefits to support transparent decision-making. Where relevant, for example in appraisals, it can use monetary evaluation of services and benefits to ensure nature isn't valued as pound zero. Financially, also, the trick is to reflect the non-valued services alongside those pound metrics, and that's where people power comes in. So putting aside conceptual approaches, what are we doing in Essex? Through our Land-Sea Interface project, we're developing the evidence base that will support source-to-sea thinking. And we're trialling how this can work in practice by applying this data and other tools within the Blackwater Cone source-to-sea area. We chose the Blackwater Cone for a number of reasons, which included a well-established partnership group. Working in a place you don't live and in a national team can be difficult if you don't have those strong local voices invested in the work. There's also an engaged university team and a county council who has clear net zero targets. While the area is rich in natural assets, they face pressures due to a growing population, high levels of agriculture, and insufficient water resources. While our partners bring to the case study some key stats and facts about the area, they also help bring the place to life. These are some of the favourite places that our partners in Essex wanted us to know about. As well as helping us get a feel for the place, this was a really nice exercise to build relationships between ourselves and the partnership and reinforce the fact that the project is being developed from the bottom up by people who are invested and care about that place. But how do we understand those connections between upstream pressures and interventions and the impact they're having downstream and out to sea? This is really tricky, and there's a significant gap in the evidence of the effectiveness of nature-based solutions in situ, never mind downstream, and that's our biggest challenge to you all. We have started to address these connections through source-to-sea systems mapping that we've been doing with Mott MacDonald, and you'll hear about that next. And this slide represents the process that they're undertaking. It might be missing. Yes, that's the one. Which is no doubt making heads hurt. But it's important mapping work nonetheless, and you'll hear more about that shortly. We've taken this local expert-led approach rather than the more technical modelling approach, as we want to be able to easily replicate the methodology and continue building our relationship with the Blackwater Cone Partnership Group. The other key bit of work we're doing is working with JBA to develop a natural capital integrated appraisal. Very simply, an integrated appraisal considers the cost of interventions and the value of the resulting multiple benefits to calculate a cost-benefit ratio for a series of management options. It's the second aim in pink is to, in pink, I'm not moving on quick enough. Through the case study, we'll develop a framework that is repeatable and accessible, meaning that it can be repeated in other areas and with data and tools that we already have. And finally, we have the strategic aim that takes all the conceptual knowledge we have, the lessons we've learned from applying that approach, and we can embed the tools and data into other existing work areas to enable a more holistic approach to water management. We recognise that these are all big aims, and we have been planning to achieve them over a period of 2 to 3 years. In the next 2 months, all of this hard work will come into fruition, and we'll have more outputs to share. It's been challenging. We knew what some of those barriers would be before starting and have found some solutions, such as taking more qualitative approaches to build the evidence base before moving on to quantitative methods. But there's definitely still more work to be done, and we're currently planning on the next steps that we need to take to help us achieve the aims we started with, and we will be able to share more of our results, outputs, and progress with you all in the next year or so. Finally, a last big thank you to the team that's been working on this. Chris Graham and Laura Hayton are in the audience at the moment, and I'll be on hand to answer any questions you might have about more detail around this work. But it's my firm belief that if we're going to shift the dial on whatever floats your boat, whether it's good ecological, environmental, favourable condition, whatever it is, then we need to break down the silos and embrace this more holistic approach. Thank you.